The entire executive floor went silent when the massive experimental engine suddenly screamed, sparked, and began shaking beneath its steel frame. Engineers froze. Executives stepped backward. Someone shouted for the emergency shutdown, but the control panel had already gone dark. In the middle of the chaos stood Daniel Carter, a tired single father in an ordinary work shirt, staring at the machine as if he could hear something no one else could. Then the CEO, Victoria Hale, looked at him with a mixture of frustration and desperation and said the words that would change both their lives, "Fix it, and I'm yours." What she didn't know was that Daniel wasn't trying to impress anyone. He was simply trying to save the company that paid for his daughter's medicine. If you believe kindness can change a person's life, and that everyone deserves a second chance no matter where they come from, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories. Daniel had never belonged in rooms filled with million-dollar machines and people wearing expensive suits. He had entered Hale Industries through the maintenance department, carrying a toolbox that had belonged to his late father. For 8 years, he had quietly repaired equipment that others considered impossible to fix. He never complained, never demanded recognition, and never asked for special treatment. Every evening, he hurried home because his 9-year-old daughter, Emma, was waiting for him. Since losing his wife several years earlier, Daniel had become both father and mother to the little girl, and every decision he made revolved around giving her a safe and happy life. Victoria Hale was the complete opposite. At 36, she was known throughout the industry as brilliant, demanding, and almost impossible to impress. She had inherited Hale Industries after her father's death and had spent years proving that she could lead it without anyone's help. The experimental engine in the company's research facility was supposed to be her greatest achievement. If it worked, Hale Industries would become one of the leaders in a revolutionary new energy market. If it failed, the company could lose millions. That morning, the engine failed spectacularly. Senior engineers had worked on it for months, but nobody could identify the source of the problem. The pressure readings were wrong. The cooling system was behaving unpredictably. Computer diagnostics insisted everything was normal, yet the machine continued to shake violently. Victoria watched her entire executive team struggle to explain what was happening, and her confidence began disappearing beneath the weight of the company's future. Then Daniel walked into the room carrying his toolbox. One of the executives immediately told him to leave, reminding him that this was an executive-level crisis. Daniel quietly looked at the engine and noticed something everyone else had missed. The sound coming from the machine was slightly irregular. It reminded him of an old industrial compressor his father had once repaired. He stepped closer and asked permission to inspect it. Victoria almost laughed. The maintenance worker was proposing that he solve a problem that dozens of highly educated engineers had failed to solve. That was when she made the teasing challenge. She told him that if he could actually fix the machine, she would owe him more than a promotion. With the tension in the room rising, she jokingly said, "Fix it, and I'm yours." Several executives laughed nervously. Daniel didn't. He simply looked at her and said that he didn't need anything from her except permission to work. Those words changed the atmosphere. Daniel opened the machine's outer panel and began examining the components. He ignored the crowd around him. His hands moved carefully, confidently, and patiently. He found a tiny vibration in one section of the cooling assembly. It wasn't a major component failure. It was a small alignment problem that was causing a chain reaction throughout the system. The engineers gathered around him in disbelief. Daniel explained that the computer couldn't detect the problem because the sensors were measuring the system after the vibration had already begun. He adjusted the alignment, replaced a damaged connector, and asked everyone to restart the machine slowly. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then the engine began running smoothly. The room erupted in applause. Victoria stood completely still. The man everyone had dismissed as a maintenance worker had just saved the company from a disaster. But Daniel didn't celebrate. He packed his tools and quietly left. Victoria followed him into the hallway and asked why he hadn't demanded a promotion or money. Daniel smiled sadly and said that his daughter had taught him something important: being useful was more valuable than being praised. That sentence stayed with Victoria. Later that evening, Victoria unexpectedly saw Daniel outside the building. He was sitting on a bench, helping Emma with her homework while eating a simple packed dinner. His expensive colleagues were attending a corporate celebration inside, but Daniel was more concerned about whether his daughter understood her mathematics assignment. Victoria watched from a distance. For the first time, she saw the man behind the toolbox. She discovered that Daniel had been taking extra shifts because Emma needed ongoing medical treatment. He had never told anyone because he was afraid that people would think he was asking for sympathy. He had even refused overtime on certain weekends because those were the only days he could spend with his daughter. Victoria realized that the person she had underestimated had been carrying a burden far heavier than any machine in her building. The next morning, she called Daniel into her office. Everyone expected him to receive a promotion. Instead, Victoria offered him a position leading the company's technical innovation team, along with flexible hours so he could be there for Emma. Daniel was stunned. He asked why she was doing all this. Victoria admitted that he had fixed more than an engine. He had reminded her why she had started the company in the first place. Months passed, and Hale Industries began thriving. Daniel became respected throughout the company, but he remained the same humble man. Victoria also changed. She became less interested in intimidating people and more interested in understanding them. One evening, after another successful project, Victoria visited Daniel's home. Emma opened the door and proudly showed her a small model engine she had built with her father. Victoria smiled. Daniel looked at the two of them and realized that somewhere between a broken machine and a careless joke, his life had taken an unexpected turn. He had entered Hale Industries hoping only to keep his job. He had walked out with something far more valuable: respect, friendship, and a future he had never believed was possible. And Victoria finally understood the meaning behind her own words. When she had said, "Fix it, and I'm yours," she had been joking. But Daniel had fixed it. Not just the machine. He had helped repair something inside her too. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring more stories of hope, kindness, and courage. And before you go, comment, "Kindness changes everything," if you believe one small act of understanding can completely change someone's life. Because sometimes, the person standing quietly in the corner is carrying the biggest story in the room, and sometimes, the person everyone overlooks is exactly the person capable of saving the day.